One of the things I love about horror is how open to interpretation the stories can be. A lot of times, what you're seeing on the screen or reading on the page isn't meant to be taken literally. It's allegory, it's a metaphor. The Babadook being a great modern example of that, where on paper, a single mother and her child are being menaced by a supernatural figure. When you really drill down, a lot of it is open to interpretation and like, was that being actually there, or is it symbolic of the mental anguish and struggle that this single mother is going through? I especially love a good horror anthology series. There's typically a limited amount of time to convey a story in its entirety. It encourages the creator to not get bogged down with the minutia of the lore. It all needs to be kind of bang, bang, bang before we start getting to the action. One of my recent favorite, just one-off stories in a horror anthology series is House of the Head from the Creepshow anthology series. It was the second story on the first episode, and it really stuck with me in its simplicity, yet complicated, unanswered questions. We open on a dollhouse, and a little girl named Evie is showing her parents. You can tell that she has a lot of love in this house. She's given them a family name, the Smiths, which her dad says kind of sounds like a speech impediment, and off the bat kind of led me to believe that maybe this was going to be a man versus man style conflict of the little girl and her parents. Like maybe this was cracks in the veneer already showing, but no, her parents actually seem to love and care about her. She sets up the family and goes to school. When she comes back, she finds a severed, rotting doll head in the dollhouse in the living room. Mr. and Mrs. Smith are sitting up in their bed. She had left them lying down. The dog, he's facing the living room where the head is, and Ethan is in his room instead of playing his guitar, looks scared. She doesn't know where the head came from. She even asks it, "Where did you come from?" And Evie comes to the conclusion that the house is haunted and she's got to do something about it. She goes back to the doll store. She comes up with a police officer figure, which she brings home, puts in the house. She goes downstairs for dinner and begins to pray, much like her dolls seem to be doing at the dinner table. Her parents are kind of surprised by this, but they humor her. They also fold their hands and lower their heads, showing that the parents are very supportive. There's no mention again anywhere else throughout this installment whether or not the family is religious or spiritual in any way. She comes back upstairs after dinner. The police officer is at the top of the stairs in the attic with his gun drawn. Her father comes up behind her, just a distraction. Evie turns back around. I really want to take this opportunity to mention how great the cinematography and the camera work is in this episode.
Oh my God.
Rest of the family have big, gaping, screaming faces on their faces. Evie and her mother then go back to the doll shop. Evie's looking for a priest or a rabbi doll, which the doll maker says he's never had because, they don't sell. It's not what churches are looking for. They're looking more for like Jesus, which if that's the case, then why don't you have a Jesus she could bring back? Like, wouldn't that be better than a priest or a rabbi? Maybe not better than a rabbi. I mean, he was a rabbi. We're getting sidetracked. Next round of dialogue is probably the one thing I would have altered in the episode.
I need something spiritual.
We do have some Native American toys. They're very spiritual people, Evie. Probably more spiritual than any priest or rabbi you'll ever meet.
Yeah, Evie's mom's face says it all right there. Maybe it all just boils down to they legitimately could not get their hands on a priest or rabbi doll, but if that were the case, I feel like that's on the props department to sew together a little priest collar. Maybe they were trying not to offend. All right, spoilers for what happens. The native doesn't make it either. Maybe the producers didn't want to offend Christians or Jewish folk and decided instead of having a priest or rabbi doll murdered, they would just put a Native American in its place and have it murdered, which is kind of worse. Like, right? I hadn't even thought about it from that angle and that, but that kind of makes a lot of sense and also makes absolutely no sense. She gets called downstairs to watch a movie with her parents. Her parents both fall asleep. She gets up to check on the Smiths and their new Native American friend. When she looks in the dollhouse, she sees the Native American doll is standing in front of the bathroom mirror, which was the last place we had seen the head after it killed the police officer. And I do believe I think it's implied that she saw it. It's hard to tell sometimes whether or not she is seeing the head where it is or if it's hidden out of her view. I like that it seems to be hidden at some points, but we know where it is. She looks away again because she's always looking away. When she gets back, she sees the native is now hanging out the bathroom window. Goes around the side and finds that the Native American's head and hand that was holding a tomahawk have been removed. Evie yells out her mom from off camera. You can hear, "Evie, are you okay?" Evie runs into bed, hides, covers up, pretends to be asleep. Mom again shows that this is a wholesome family who actually care about Evie. Mom comes in to check on her, says if you have bad dreams or you're scared, it's okay if you're scared. You could just crawl into bed with me and Dad tonight. Mom leaves, leaving Evie's room with all the lights on. Evie's mom understands that there's still more scene to be filmed up here, and it's like a 15-minute story. We ain't got time to have Evie jumping out of bed, running to the wall, turning the lights back on, and then going to check on it. Her dollhouse and native friend and the Smiths. Evie gets up. She goes to check the dollhouse, and she finds Mr. and Mrs. Smith decapitated on the floor. Another really good shot. I want to take this opportunity to just say the little girl who plays Evie did a phenomenal job. The concern that she shows on her face throughout for her doll friends, emotions like sadness and regret and the sense of like, I failed you, like I feel all of that coming off of this young child. Damn. She finds Ethan's body upstairs with his head removed, but the rotting head is on his shoulders. She grabs him, pulls the head off it, tosses it on the floor, jumps into her bed, only for seconds later for her to realize now the head is in my room. She gets up and starts looking around. She starts looking over here and over here, not really looking, and it's like, we all saw you when you threw it, it went under the bed. Like, just just look under the bed. But she's a child. She's in a panicked state. Kudos to her. She's handling her shit. She digs under the bed with her flashlight. She's looking. We as the audience, if you pay close attention, you can see the head. She pulls the teddy bear back, and there's a full-grown version of this head. She picks up the head, throws it back into the dollhouse, closes the wall behind it, and says she's done with it. She's done with the head. No more head.
No more of the head.
We then cut to her in her parents' vehicle. Dad says, "Are you sure?" And she nods, and they're donating or selling the dollhouse to someone else. Evie just kind of turns and looks at the lady as she's going to explore the house herself. And we see, as the audience, Ethan's body standing up with the head facing the opposite direction, and it spins around really quick, and that's the end of the episode. Like, damn, Evie, that's cold. You're just gonna pass that shit off onto some unsuspecting victim. Harsh, but I respect it. You're a kid, you don't know any better. The story is so simple, but it tells so much, and it really like doesn't explain what the head is, where it came from. Could be any number of things, and I'd like to get into a few theories. I have theory number one: the dollhouse is just haunted by the head. There is no real timeline given on when Evie acquired the dollhouse to when the head starts appearing within it. Maybe she got the dollhouse, then spent the next few days with an empty house arranging the furniture before she got the dolls to make up the family. For this theory to work, the house would essentially have to have been empty for whatever period of time before Evie starts introducing the dolls to her family at the beginning of the episode for it to make sense. Theory number two: the head was inadvertently introduced to the Smith family by Evie's father. When Evie is introducing the family to her parents, no, when Evie is introducing her parents to the doll family, her father putting a fireplace in the living room for them. Perhaps this fireplace is the vessel that contained or contains the head. It's very similar to theory one, but instead of it being that the head existed first and the family was introduced to the environment where the head was, that the family existed within the environment and then the head was introduced to it next. You see, so it's kind of two sides to the same coin. Theory three is my favorite and the one that I ascribe to for this story, and that is that it's all Evie. We have a scene where the mother and the shopkeeper are talking.
Randy thinks it's a good idea for her to play with dolls. Says it's good for building her identity.
He's right. They still haven't come up with a better way for a child to figure out who they really are.
I guess that's why they call them figurines.
And they don't typically like to tell you about it either.
Tell you about what?
What they're figuring out.
So this was when I started wondering if Evie is just kind of playing out some darker fantasies in her head. Like, as you start getting older, you start kind of wrestling with your mortality and other people's mortality. You begin to realize that people die. So we have Evie playing with a representation of her family within the dollhouse. Dog with them. Maybe that's something that she actually wants. This is something that she planned on exploring, is what would life be like with a dog. But instead, she started exploring the idea of death, of murder, even. If we assume that this is all Evie's doings, and it's all done for the sake of exploring herself, then it would make sense that at first the idea scares her, and it scares the family. So an authority figure is brought in, but, the cop ends up dead. Same thing with the unfortunate Native American spiritualist, I guess. And so Evie gets to, at first, explore a sociopathic, like murderous nature within her on a couple of strangers to begin with, then explores it on family members. I believe at the very end, when mom and dad are dead and Ethan has been decapitated but the head is placed on top of him, I believe this is symbolic of Evie allowing herself to experience what that would be like, and being afraid of what she could become if she allows this to continue on. And I feel that's further revealed when she throws the head into her room and says, I can't leave that thing in my room. She is struggling internally with this idea, with a darker side of herself, and she decides that she doesn't want that anymore, which is why she then goes looking for it in her room, finds it in real size, which, if Ethan with the head on him was symbolic of Evie's internal darkness, then the real life size head that she finds could be like the step before it becomes her own head, and then she acts on her darker inclinations. But instead, because I believe her parents are are very good to her throughout this, they're never upset with her, they never yell at her or are unreasonable. There is that one little bit of teasing at the beginning. Maybe that's what even triggers her thought process to a darker side of, I want to harm him for making fun of me right now. You know, we all kind of have a knee-jerk reaction to anger from time to time, even for people that we care about and love, but we don't act upon it. This child had the opportunity to kind of explore that through her dollhouse, didn't like what she saw, and decided no more head.
No more of the head.
She's just going to get rid of the dollhouse. She doesn't need to worry about that side of herself, which could be construed as a happy ending. She's overcome what's inside her and is going to live a perfectly normal and happy existence from here on out. Or it could be interpreted that she is getting rid of the one thing that was kind of a filter, that was allowing her to vent out her darker side. And now without that, who knows exactly what the future has in store for Evie or her family. Legitimately, from the 4 seasons of Creepshow, it's my favorite installment. It's the one that stuck with me the most. That's all I've got for right now. If you feel like I'm onto something, like the video, subscribe, and we can talk about more in stuff, more stuff, like dollhouses that are haunted, more episodes of Creepshow, horror in general. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I overthinking yet another piece of media that I've consumed? Am I onto something? Which theory do you subscribe to? Do you have your own interpretation of what was going on in this story? What happened to the dog? Did he escape? Did he get killed? I think he escaped. Tell me if you agree or not. If you like this recap and analysis, give the video a like. If you didn't like it, give it a dislike. Either way, you stuck around to the end. I'm grateful for that. Subscribe if you want more. If not, that's cool too. Thank you for vibing with me and my intrusive thoughts, and I hope we'll hang again soon.